Welcome, and thank you for joining Between Sessions with Justin and Challie.
Just a quick disclaimer before we start. This podcast is for educational and conversational purposes only. It's not intended to replace therapy, counseling, or professional mental health care. We are sharing lived experiences and reflections, not prescriptions, and we encourage our listeners to seek professional guidance when needed. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Our topic for today is attachment styles.
Yeah,
Right.
attachment styles. We're going to go over kind of what the attachment styles are, a little bit of how they're developed, and then really how they show up as an adult or as a teen.
This is something I'm excited for because I really want to brush up on it and kind of like re-educate myself on the different attachment styles.
I think it's really interesting once we are more aware of them, how often we see it show up in life. And for someone who may not have any exposure to this before, might be able to see like, "Oh, this makes sense of some of my behavior," or, "Okay, I understand why that person may have done this." This is not diagnosing or anything like that, but giving information on how we develop relationships and how we formed them when we were younger. So going over the 4 attachment styles is insecure, anxious attachment, secure attachment, avoidant attachment, and then disorganized attachment. Starting with insecure or anxious attachment is going to be developed in childhood of not having a really responsive caregiver, not really forming that bond, not being able to feel secure and going to them with challenges. And then as an adult, we are going to, have an anxious attachment style. We're going to be really clingy. We're going to feel uncertain of ourselves. We're going to rely on another person for validation and for problem solving. And it can be really difficult to feel secure within ourselves if we did not have a secure attachment growing up. What are some ways that you think that shows up as like a teen or adult?
Well, like you said, the clinginess, gosh, as a teen, I see it a lot, like in my teen girls, how they just seem to like cling on to boyfriends and they're just like they have to be either with them or on the phone with them or texting them like all the time. And if they're not, they get very anxious, like visibly anxious.
I go back to the piece of being on the phone. For me, that's such a red flag for that anxious attachment is just like always being on call with these people. That's the term they use is being on call. And always being on call or connected in that way, like you said in a previous episode of like the phone just being in their pocket or falling asleep on the phone.
The falling asleep on the phone thing, I mean, that is like cute if you're like on the phone and you accidentally fall asleep, but like to make it a thing where it's like, okay, every night we are going to be on the phone and we are not going to hang up. And I want to be able to wake up in the middle of the night and hear you breathing. Like
Requirement.
it gives me like mega red flag vibes.
Yeah. So with being clingy, it can look different ways, but it's overall going to look like just that discomfort of like being by yourself, not feeling confident in ourselves, and needing that other person for that constant reassurance, that constant validation, and the discomfort of the what if, and not feeling able to be present or able to enjoy things in the moment without some connection. Many times it is that significant other, but it can also be friends. It can be not being able to go to the store by ourselves. It can be not being able to go to the bathroom by ourselves. And it tends to be characterized by like a lot of fear as well.
It's interesting that you bring up friends because I always think of it as like relationship, but I do see it among like friendships as well. And like not wanting to share their friend. Like that's my friend. They can't have any other friends.
And for me, it really makes me think of like a lack mentality of like there's not enough to go around, or there's a fear of losing that person, which makes sense that insecure or anxious attachment piece is really going to feel like we're going to be left and we're going to be less than, or we're going to be forgotten about.
Yeah.
As an adult, where do you think that shows up as well, kind of even building on the piece of a teen?
The constant need for validation. So maybe overworking. Like I know we all want to go above and beyond, but to the point where you are burning yourself out, going above and beyond to please whoever your superior is, needing that constant validation from your superior.
We're probably going to have like a dependence on whether it be a partner, a friendship, some sort of relationship, but like a dependence. And at a point that there's such a fear of loss that we are going to not pay attention to our needs or
Mhm.
our wants, and we're just going to please that other person kind of no matter what. It can also be like that fear of abandonment, always concerned that someone's going to leave, always fearing that we're going to be left alone.
And that stems from early childhood abandonment?
Yes. So
Okay.
not as intense as like when we get to the disorganized, but more so it being that when something went wrong, when they needed emotional support, it wasn't there or it was really inconsistent. So their emotional needs and sometimes physical needs were not met. Not as much as the other style, the disorganized, but inconsistency with receiving that support and that love.
You know where my mind goes,
Where?
but it's like very controversial is
Oh,
what?
putting the baby down.
Yes, the cried out. Like
Try
how
it out.
people they incorrectly utilize the cried out method and they use it on babies who are too small to self-soothe. I'm not a fan of cried out, but if you're going to use it, obviously research and do it appropriately. And it is not appropriate until a child can self-soothe because the cried out method is trying to help build that ability to self-soothe, which is a very important thing to have. But people are like putting their babies down and letting them just cry hysterically for hours and claiming that they're just letting them cry it out. And there's a lot of research around that and how that can actually impact a baby's brain
Mhm.
and it can impact their development.
It shows to them at a young age that they cannot rely on a caregiver and that their needs will not be met. So
Hmm.
they have to go, above and beyond to get those needs met that then can turn into more extreme behavior as they grow up.
And listen, I am a new mom. I put my baby down, and if she cries, but I still have to go to the bathroom, I'm gonna let her cry for a few minutes. She's okay. So I want to like really emphasize that we as moms deserve to be able to put the
Mhm.
crying baby down for a little while to have our own peace. I'm talking like consistently 4 hours for I don't want to say no reason, but yeah. If I need to take a shower, like a quick, 20-minute shower, if my baby is safe in the crib and she just wants to cry for 20 minutes, girl, I need a shower so we both can function. Like, so that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the hours and the everyday,
Yeah.
just, yeah.
The extremes.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
and that's where it is controversial for sure. And it's being able to find that balance of, yes, an infant does have that dependency though. And if we don't meet those needs, they develop an unhealthy way of soothing. And that research shows that then it can turn into unhealthy ways to soothe later in life. So finding that balance, at least just being able to gain an understanding of what that cried out method is and like find that balance, right? Not the extremes. But yes, that's almost exactly what it's referring to in infancy and in childhood is do they feel secure going to that caregiver to be able to get their needs met? If that's no, that's where it can develop in more of the negative attachment styles.
It's actually really interesting. And my brother's totally cool with me talking about him, but he was adopted through foster care. So when I met him, he was 3. But like I always grew up with the mentality of like we grew up, we had the same childhood,
Mm.
right? Because like you're 3, you don't have memories before that, really. So I never understood why we took such different paths in life and why he always seemed like he just struggled way more than I did. And I'm like, dude, we're in the same house. And now it's so fascinating because it's like he didn't have those super important development connections in his first 3 years of life. So, and those are like the most crucial.
That lack of the bond.
Yes.
For-
And I can see how it has continued to affect him into adulthood. And he has had to really overcome a lot of challenges,
Yeah.
which he has, and he's rocking it. So, woo. But it's been a challenge.
Going to the next one. So we started with the anxious or insecure. The next one is the other really unhealthy one. So this one is probably the least healthy. And this can be where it's the most challenging to develop a healthier attachment style. And so this one is the disorganized attachment. In childhood, this is many times characterized by neglect, abuse, trauma, and just having either no or such minimal bond with a caregiver that they really struggle to build attachment later on. And even if it is sometimes getting that attention or getting those needs met, it being so inconsistent that it just ends up being confusing. That many times is also what happens when a child does not have a specific caregiver. It does not always have to be mom, but a caregiver for those like first core developmental years. This can be like the more extreme side of that. As an adult, this really shows up as fear of rejection, unhealthy coping skills or behaviors, more extreme behaviors, distrust in others because they didn't develop that trust or that bond, and a really hard time or difficulty regulating emotions because they didn't get the needs met when they were younger. So they have a really hard time being able to self soothe.
How is this different than the anxious, insecure one that we just talked about?
So they are similar.
Yeah.
This is the more extreme. This is where there's no trust. There is really absolutely minimal or no bond. This is also going to have larger reactions in like childhood and maybe bigger behavior that is unhealthy, going to extremes to get needs met rather than having some security and being able to get it met. These are times that the need was just never met. There wasn't enough resource for this child, and then they have a lack or scarcity of the needs ever being met as they're growing up.
Okay. So the first one that we talked about wouldn't classify as neglect,
Right.
more so just not being there enough emotionally. Whereas this one is more categorized as like straight neglect
Yes.
for basic needs.
Yes. So anxious is going to be the emotional side. This-
Okay.
It's the crying it out or not being comforting, not having that secure attachment with the caregiver. This is more of food, shelter, clothing were not met. They had an insecurity with food, insecurity with safety. There's potential like getting hurt. So then it builds that distrust moving forward, even as a child. Like they're not going to an adult, they're just trying to handle everything on their own and not reaching out for the help, even as a child. Where someone with the anxious attachment is still going to try. They're going to reach out for that help. They're going to go to caregiver when they're sad. This one just not going to do it because it was never met. So they didn't build that skill of reaching out.
I feel like that corresponds to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where if the top need isn't met, they can't meet the next one. So if those, and I think, what is it, food, clothing, those are
Yep.
like the top needs. If those aren't met, nothing underneath it can be met.
Yeah.
So, okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So, like building on it, if we don't have food, shelter, clothing, we can't get to building social relationships. We can't get to being able to be successful in self actualization. I know I skipped a step within that, but
No,
can't
yeah, but
build on that. We also, if we had disorganized attachment, we're not going to follow through with things because we can't work through that challenge at the sign of discomfort. Well, nobody came to the rescue before. Why try now?
oh
So
my gosh, that resonates so much with me, with my brother, because at like the first sign of anything, he wants to bounce.
yeah.
Like at a job, as soon as there's like even a little like conflict or anything, he's just like, I'm gonna quit.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Because in childhood, not to sound too sad, but like it just didn't get better. So what's the hope that it's going to get better after that challenge? Because it just didn't get better
That
before.
is sad, but it's
Yeah,
true.
it's so true.
I think it's mostly sad because it's so true.
Whereas someone with anxious attachment, there was relief. Where with the disorganized attachment, for an extended period of time, especially during those developmental years, there was no relief. It was just so consistently negative, maybe sometimes a sprinkle of attention or something, but then it just became confusing because that was uncomfortable. As an adult, this is like deep fear of rejection, deep fear of that challenge that we're just, right, like we bounce. Nope, okay, it was hard. I'm not going to do it. And this many times gets categorized as like laziness or you just can't stick it out. There's a reason.
Like, I'm gonna leave before you kick me out type of mentality
Yeah.
because they're so afraid of rejection.
Contradictory behavior. This is like saying, oh, I want this relationship or I want to do this thing. And that's where that any sign of it getting bad, I'm out because I don't want it to get bad. I'd rather take myself out of the situation before you do.
Mhm.
So with relationships, with jobs, with sometimes housing, and there's a lot of self-blame when it comes to this. So if the slightest part of us not feeling confident that we're doing the right thing, I'd rather ruin it for myself than maybe we're not saying that exactly, but like I'll just take care of it before someone else takes care of it for me.
Mhm.
Before I'm taken out of a situation, I'll do it on my terms.
Yes. Well, okay, that makes sense.
And then extreme distrust. And this is distrust not only in like parents, but this is in society in general, in safety, within peers. I mean, this is just a general distrust in just like life and safety. Um, and the difficulty regulating the emotions, just in general, having to go to a more extreme to get any needs met makes it much harder to have the coping skills because they'll then get met at a lower level. This also many times is going to show up as low self-esteem, and it's really hard to build the self-esteem because we lack that confidence.
God, why is that a side effect of pretty much everything? I feel like, like any childhood anything is like one side effect is you're gonna have low self-esteem.
Just hits the core. Self-image,
Mhm.
self-esteem.
It makes sense though.
Yeah, because it shakes up the way that we view ourselves. It's so common that kind of any unhealthy or negative piece shows up as it being internalized.
Well, because who's the first person in your life to build up your confidence? It's your caregiver, I'm
Yeah.
constantly building up my son's self-confidence. I mean, even my 3-month-old, I'm like, "You're so pretty." But if you don't have that, that makes sense.
And even so kind of thinking about the at the really young age, it's not as much of the words that are being said, it's the tone, it's the warmness rather than it being really closed and shut off.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, the importance of the snuggles.
Mhm. Next one. So we're building. I mean, we did a little bit of a jump between like the avoidant and the one that's a little bit more challenging. The next one is avoidant attachment. This one, attachment comes from being rejected as a child and then emotional unavailability. So this one differs that like those core needs were met. There was food, shelter, clothing, but there was maybe rejection or maybe more negative language or that really cold environment that they didn't get much support. And so these are really similar in like the childhood piece.
Yeah, they seem really similar.
Yeah. And then this one kind of leans more on like the emotional piece. And so so avoidant and anxious or insecure, they have a lot of similarities in the childhood piece. It's the way they come out.
The way they manifest as an adult. Okay.
Yep. So with showing up as an adult, it's going to be like the emphasis on independence, where anxious was very dependent on someone, needed that reassurance. Avoidant is the emphasis on independence, lack of trust, so they just avoid and do things by themselves for themselves.
I think we've heard, I mean, that's a common thing that we've heard though, is like hyper independence can be a sign of some type of lacking in your childhood.
They don't handle rejection well. Rejection is absolutely devastating. Rather than being able to recover, it is devastating. It becomes crisis many times. And then difficulty with emotions. This is going to be avoiding emotions in general. Good, bad, healthy, unhealthy emotions. They all exist, but they just avoid all of them. Not being able to feel them. And that's really tough because then we don't experience the good ones, the feeling happy.
That's true.
Just avoid all of them.
Mhm.
This also in like teens and getting into young adults is really like the individual who isolates, who sits by themselves, who is not interested in forming any social relationships. And then because they're going to have issues with vulnerability, and they're going to be really cold and like closed off and not let anybody in. So not having a desire to get close with anybody and not letting anybody close with them. What are some ways that you think you've seen this show up like in adulthood?
Definitely the hyper independence, but to the point where it's like unhealthy.
Yeah.
I feel like I've used the word burnout so much in this one, but just the working yourself until you're burnt out and feeling like anything less is just an epic failure.
Yes. And it hits that core.
Yeah.
It's not, this job is challenging and I had a hard time with this. It's, I'm a bad person. I suck at this.
Mm-hmm.
And just internalizing that. Any failure, any rejection is internalized as you did something wrong. Or I did this, and then can also even fall into, well, I deserve this.
Like it's all making sense. But like I've seen that in people where they think everything is their fault. And I've had to be very like stern with them and say like you are incorrect. This is not your fault. This is not your doing. And it's wild because thinking about it now, the people that I've had those conversations with have had that lack of emotional support as a child.
With avoidant attachment, it's also going to be really common that they do rely on those external pieces for validation, such as work, such as being a parent, almost in a sense to like prove that they're doing well, and convincing themselves that they're doing well.
I resonate with this one a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, not so much now, but in my 20s, it
Yep.
was. But I mean, even like now, I will find myself like just taking everything on because I want to please. And I mean, I don't do it often, but occasionally if I'm feeling a little meh, I will have to like text my supervisor and be like, "Hey, am I doing okay?" for that reassurance. So yeah, wow, that one really resonates a lot with me.
And a lot of it comes with like talking about burnout, like you said, you keep on bringing that up. But as an adult, for many people, a core piece of being an adult is some level of employment. Many times takes up 40 hours out of our week. That's a big chunk of life. So it's easy to pour a lot into that.
I wonder if that contributes to individuals who stay in toxic jobs for way too long, right?
Deserve it.
Feeling like we deserve it or feeling like it's not the job, it's us. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't a
Yeah.
toxic job. I just suck at it. And that's why it feels that way.
That continuous cycle of like trying to get better at something that we just might not be a fit for, or it might be a tough environment.
Yeah.
Taking it as like a personal failure. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
I'm telling you, it resonates with me so much. I stayed in a toxic job for way too long, trying to prove to somebody.
yeah.
I don't know who I was proving it to, myself or someone else, that I was strong enough to do it.
Yeah.
Now I'm
That-
just like, F that.
Now we circle to the healthiest one.
Yay!
So say these are changeable. The childhood piece, no. Like that is what is done, but these are all changeable. We can heal and we can work to get to the healthier side of this. It is not because it's done, it's set in stone. It's going to take some work, especially if we're on like the disorganized one. That's going to take a lot of work to challenge, but we can do it. It is not set in stone. It is not a forever thing. And we can also fluctuate between these different attachment styles. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like a scale. And so that's where when we go into this next one of secure attachment, this is right in the middle.
Like a spectrum.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And we fall somewhere in there. And we can fluctuate different periods of our life. Like you said, in your 20s, you might have resonated with something more. And then we build some skills and we fall somewhere more in the middle.
Okay. I'm excited. Tell me the good news.
So secure attachment in childhood is consistent access to response. Does not have to be positive or negative, but just response in general. So there was someone there. And then the person or the caregiver was emotionally present. So made time, made space for that child. And all of their needs were met. And this does not mean that it was absolutely perfect. The parent still probably yelled. A parent still put them down. But consistently, those needs were met emotionally and physically as well. So as an adult, this develops a confident, emotionally available adult who is in tune with their emotions and stress. This is going to be someone who is able to manage emotions, who is going to be able to ask for help when needed, show up for other people. and not take it so personally, feeling rejection, just a little bit more emotionally flexible. It also having healthy boundaries, trusting people, trusting our supports, and being able to just feel confident in the self, in the world. So that's where a lot of the other ones develop some level of like distrust or insecurity within the world. Having secure attachment is going to allow us to be able to feel more confident in the world and have potentially a more positive outlook. This one sounds like rainbows and unicorns.
It does.
We can get there. Most people, I would go on a limb to say, like, don't have this or don't just automatically have it. It takes a level of work to be able to get to secure attachment. But this really shows up in those healthy relationships, healthy parenting, healthy work-life balance. What are some ways that you can think of that this might show up?
Okay, so it's definitely a spectrum
Yeah.
because, like I said, when I was in my 20s, I was not there.
Right.
Now I feel like I am, but not all there. Like,
Yeah.
I still have the fear of rejection, the fear of I'm not doing enough, but like the healthy boundaries, that's huge. And also, it really resonated with me the asking for help, like
Yes.
being comfortable asking for help. I think that shows such a maturity to be able to ask for help and also like to be able to say I'm not educated enough to partake in that conversation or that decision or something. To be able to say like I don't know and be okay with that, I feel like that is a huge thing too. Huge step because like when I was in my whatever anxious attachment or whichever one I was in, to say I don't know something felt like just a moral like failure.
Yeah.
And now, even in like my professional life, even things I probably should know, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm drawing a blank. I'll get back to you.
Because it doesn't define you. Have a failure does not define us. And having a secure attachment style allows you to be able to say, "Oh, I lost that one, but I can do better next time. Mistakes happen. I can
Hmm.
do better."
Yeah, I think just, accepting that you are human and you are not perfect. Once you can accept that,
Mhm.
yeah, I feel like you get a lot more secure.
Having a secure attachment style is really going to be beneficial in a lot of areas, but many times, like specifically going to be relationships, employment, and being able to push through those challenging times because we feel like that opposite side is better. There's something worth working towards. With looking at the other attachment styles, the anxious, the disorganized, and the avoidant, that can be an unhealthy coping skills. This can lead to addiction or unhealthy
I
relationship.
was gonna ask if the negative attachment style
Yep.
led to things such as substance
Yep.
abuse or crime.
Because there's less care for other people
Mhm.
because they weren't cared about. So it has less of an impact. Someone with secure attachment sees that emotional value, where someone who specifically like with the disorganized attachment has had to fend for everything for themselves. So they haven't had time to worry about someone else.
I am weirdly interested in like sovereign citizens and I'm just so interested in how their like thinking works on like a sociology level. And I can't help but wonder if the disorganized attachment led to, because you said it leads to distrust of pretty much everything, right? And if you consider yourself a sovereign citizen, you distrust all government, organized anything. So now I'm going to do a study. How many sovereign citizens had a disorganized attachment childhood?
Where some of the studies have been done is specifically like an addiction in crime, different mental health symptoms or conditions as well. The more negative attachment styles put you at a much higher rate of either experiencing or developing these unhealthy coping skills that can then turn into larger challenges.
Hmm.
As just a way to make ends meet or needs met at first turn into a cycle or a pattern of unhealthy coping skills.
Yeah. So this is sounding very discouraging. So,
Yeah.
how do we make a change?
So,
Like, what do we do?
to get to the level of secure attachment, one of the biggest things is going to be setting those boundaries,
Mm.
not only with other people, but with ourselves. So just like you had showed with the, someone who is taking on all of that blame for everything that goes wrong and it being a personal failure, releasing some of that, setting a boundary that, no, I'm not responsible for all of that. I'm responsible for me, my actions, my thoughts, and my behaviors. It's also going to be getting vulnerable. And this is, we have to be mindful of it, to do it in the right places with the right people, to be vulnerable, because we don't want to be vulnerable, especially in like the more negative relationships that could potentially harm that and set us back. Becoming more vulnerable, letting people in, that goes along with the boundaries of, if we have such rigid boundaries and don't let anybody in, and we're not going to build that trust. Small baby steps.
Slowly letting the walls
Yeah.
come down.
Yeah.
But slowly. It would be a shock to your system if all of a sudden all your walls just fell down, but just that slow, like, walls coming down a little bit.
So baby steps. What else do you think could get us closer to that secure attachment?
Well, you mentioned, finding a safe person to talk to. So obviously, I'm going to promote therapy because it's wonderful. But seriously, therapists are trained to help you develop safe, secure attachments. So reaching out to a professional will be very helpful and safe. That is someone that you are safe with.
To provide that safe space to explore those things that is going to be judgment free, that is going to allow you to explore it and really see where it's stemming from too. I think that's another big piece of getting closer to that secure attachment, is going to be able to identify what was not meant for us and focus on that area.
Yes.
Okay. Other ways that we can start to build that secure attachment is going to be building healthier relationships. So along with like letting people in, but also valuing ourselves, doing things to build our self-confidence and our self-esteem so that we can then participate in healthier relationships, hold ourselves in higher regard rather than just accepting or feeling as though we deserve less than, which is so much easier said than done.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
This takes work.
Yeah, let me just raise my self-confidence. Like, no, that takes a lot of work.
And it's becoming more comfortable with ourselves and doing the work little by little. Just like you said, I mean, if we just walked in and was like, letting every wall down and I am instantly self-confident, it's not going to be true to us because it's going to shock our system. We're not going to know how to be there. So it's taking these baby steps to be able to get there, to build those healthier relationships, to set those boundaries, to understand and know that we can lean on other people. So falling somewhere between the independence and dependence on someone, knowing that people are there, but we also can do things on our own, but
Mhm.
asking for help is just another huge piece of the secure attachment, is like knowing when to ask for help and knowing that we can ask for help.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
And that tends to be the start to some of it too, is asking for help.
Yeah.
Anything else that you can think of that might help build that secure attachment?
I think just setting small, attainable goals, because you want it to be kind of like measurable, your
Yeah.
improvement, right? So, like we said, taking small baby steps and having goals that go along with that, that you can measure and you can see. So that way you can see yourself making little by little by little progress.
What might that look like?
Maybe asking for help,
Yeah.
but something small.
Yeah.
Like something small and risk-free, like asking a waitress to explain something on the menu that you don't understand.
Yeah.
Like something as simple as that.
And I love that you said something low risk, something that if it is rejected, because we can't control others, if it is rejected, it's not a completely defeating thing. But being able to start with low risk to build that confidence so that it doesn't take too much away from us, so that we can build that confidence to then ask for those bigger things.
Low risk to start,
Yes.
and then you increase it a little bit.
Yeah. Especially because we're going to start to build those people that are helpful and we might be able to lean on and we know we can count on and trust.
Mhm.
Okay. Ultimate goal is, yes, to get that secure attachment style, but steps of getting there is going to be identifying it, being able to work on the areas that we really struggle in that attachment area, and that's unique to us. So being able to identify that for ourselves, that might be with the work of someone else to be able to help us see those blind spots.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
I feel like that was very insightful. Again, not here to diagnose anyone, just discussing what it is and what it can lead to. So interesting.
The more that we have the proper language or the insight into our experience can help us heal and be more emotionally flexible and more successful in our life and our relationships. Thank you so much for joining this week. If anybody wants to share what they've identified their attachment style to be or ways that we've been able to improve our attachment style to become more secure throughout the years, please share that with us.
If anyone has any suggestions for topics to cover in the upcoming podcast episodes, also let us know that. We are always taking suggestions and ideas. All right. Bye, guys.